The ego wants certainty. It thrives on the belief that it is in control and that it knows who we are. Inner work shatters that illusion by forcing us to question our identity, motives, and the stories we tell ourselves. To the ego, inner work feels like a threat. If I am not who I thought I was, then who am I? This fear keeps us clinging to the familiar, even when it causes suffering. The known pain feels safer than the unknown truth. We fear the loss of self-image. We have worked so hard to be liked, accepted, and seen a certain way. Facing our inner world may reveal desires, wounds, and darkness we have hidden even from ourselves. Inner work is not just reflection. It is confrontation. It asks us to sit with discomfort and undo lifelong patterns. That process can feel like ego death, and most people will do anything to avoid that loss of identity. The ego survives by maintaining control of the narrative. Inner work removes that control. It invites a deeper truth to emerge, one that may contradict everything we thought we knew about ourselves. This is terrifying to the unprepared mind. The voice inside that says, "I don't have time for this," or "it's just overthinking," is often the ego protecting its territory. We avoid looking inward, not because there is nothing there, but because we know there is, and it might change everything. We avoid inner work because we fear what it might reveal. Buried memories, suppressed emotions, and uncomfortable truths often wait beneath the surface. Looking inward means opening doors we spent years keeping shut. The pain we suppressed does not disappear. It hides in our reactions, our relationships, and our habits, but facing it directly feels overwhelming. We fear it will consume us if we let it in, so we keep it at a distance. Many of us learned early that emotions were dangerous. We were taught to be strong, to move on, to smile through pain. Inner work asks us to feel what we were never allowed to feel. That can be terrifying. Truth is not always comforting. Sometimes it confronts our pride, our choices, our roles in past wounds. It asks us to stop blaming others and take responsibility. The mind resists this because it hurts the image we have built. We are often afraid not of what we will find, but of how it will change us. If I finally see the truth, I may no longer fit in the life I have built. That fear of transformation keeps many from ever beginning the journey inward. Inner work does not create pain. It reveals the pain that was already there. What we fear is not the process itself, but the honesty it demands. It strips away our defenses and leaves us face to face with ourselves. The mind is a master of avoidance. It fills our days with endless tasks, notifications, and noise. In quiet moments, instead of looking inward, we reach for a screen, a drink, or a new distraction to escape ourselves. Busyness is often praised in our culture, but it can be a form of emotional hiding. If we are always occupied, we never have to ask the deeper questions. The mind uses activity to protect us from introspection. Even our thoughts can be distractions. We overanalyze, plan, or fantasize to avoid sitting in stillness. True inner work begins where thought ends. That silence is uncomfortable, so the mind rushes to fill it with something familiar. Distraction becomes a form of emotional anesthesia. It numbs the discomfort we do not want to feel. The more painful the inner truth, the more elaborate the distractions become. We confuse stimulation with meaning. We may even turn to self-help content without ever applying it. Learning becomes a substitute for doing the work. The mind convinces us that we are growing, while cleverly keeping us from experiencing real transformation. Avoidance is not a lack of discipline. It is a protective mechanism. The mind resists inner work because it knows what is at stake. The moment we slow down and listen, the truth begins to surface, and with it, change. We often mistake constant motion for progress. But staying busy can be a subtle defense mechanism, shielding us from the deeper discomfort of facing ourselves. When every moment is filled, there is no space for self-inquiry. Busyness gives us the illusion of importance. It keeps the ego inflated and distracted. We begin to define our worth by how much we do, not by how deeply we know ourselves. In this state, presence becomes impossible. Overthinking is another form of avoidance. It feels productive, but often circles around the same ideas without resolution. It keeps us in our heads and away from the body, where most emotional truths are stored. We analyze to protect ourselves from feeling. If I can understand it, I will not have to sit in the raw emotion of it. But healing does not come from explanation. It comes from presence, from allowing what arises to move through us. The deeper the resistance, the louder the mind becomes. It floods us with plans, worries, and hypotheticals. The goal is not clarity but escape. This noise makes inner stillness feel unreachable, even dangerous. The tragedy is that we often feel exhausted yet unfulfilled. We are doing everything but going nowhere. The soul longs for stillness, but the mind clings to motion. Until we pause, we cannot hear what is truly calling us from within. What we cannot accept in ourselves, we often see in others. This is the mechanism of projection. The mind takes what is unconscious and casts it outward, allowing us to judge it from a safe distance without recognizing it as our own. When we meet someone and feel immediate irritation or disdain, it is often not about them. It is about something in us that has been disowned. The traits we condemn in others often reflect the parts of ourselves we have suppressed. Projection is a form of emotional protection. It allows us to maintain the illusion of being good or right by placing the shadow outside ourselves. We create enemies so we do not have to confront our own contradictions. The more intense the judgment, the more likely it is a mirror. We are drawn to people who activate unresolved aspects of our psyche. Sometimes we hate in others what we secretly fear we are. Other times, we resent qualities we long to express. This process is mostly unconscious. We do not realize we are doing it. We believe our stories about others. We believe our irritation is justified. But if we look closer, the reaction is often out of proportion to the event. Projection shows up in every part of life. In relationships, we blame partners for our emotional wounds. In work, we see our own insecurities in colleagues. In society, we demonize groups that reflect our internal conflicts. Jung said that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But this only happens if we are willing to stop and ask, what in me is being revealed through this person? Projection keeps the shadow hidden. It keeps us emotionally safe but spiritually stagnant. When we reclaim our projections, we take back energy that was scattered. We begin to see others clearly and ourselves with humility. This is not about self-blame. It is about self-awareness. The more we own what we have rejected, the less we need to control or condemn the world around us. Inner work dissolves judgment by making us whole. Cynicism is often a defense against vulnerability. When we laugh at sincerity or dismiss growth as naive, we may be protecting ourselves from the risk of feeling hope, pain, or disappointment. It is safer to mock than to open. Denial operates quietly. It convinces us that everything is fine, that we are not affected, that nothing needs to change. It silences the inner voice that whispers truth. Over time, this disconnection can lead to numbness or quiet despair. We deny not only our wounds but also our longing. The desire for depth, intimacy, and truth becomes buried beneath distractions and surface living. Denial keeps us functional but disconnected from anything that feels deeply alive. Spiritual bypassing is one of the most sophisticated forms of resistance. It uses beautiful language and elevated ideas to avoid real pain. We may say everything happens for a reason while refusing to grieve what was lost. Some hide behind positivity, others behind non-attachment or detachment. But underneath the calm exterior, there may be unresolved fear, sadness, or anger. We call it transcendence, but often it is avoidance dressed as wisdom. The danger is that we believe we are evolving while remaining emotionally frozen. True inner work is not always peaceful. It includes shadow, conflict, and mess. Growth requires contact with what is uncomfortable and real. Cynicism and bypassing both protect the ego. They maintain the idea that we already know, that we are already above the struggle. But in truth, the refusal to feel is the very thing that keeps us stuck and fragmented. Inner work asks for radical honesty, not performative depth, but quiet sincerity. It invites us to feel without explaining, to sit with discomfort without escaping, and to meet the parts of ourselves that are still waiting to be seen. When we avoid inner work, life tends to repeat itself. We find ourselves in the same arguments, the same disappointments, the same emotional spirals. What we do not face becomes a cycle, quietly asking for our attention. Unresolved wounds do not disappear with time. They show up in our choices, in the people we are drawn to, in the opportunities we push away. Without awareness, we mistake repetition for bad luck instead of a hidden invitation to heal. Self-sabotage is not a failure of willpower. It is often the unconscious protecting us from perceived danger. If we were hurt when we trusted, we may now sabotage closeness. If success once led to rejection, we may unconsciously avoid it. We tell ourselves we want to grow, but fear lives underneath. The deeper the fear, the stronger the resistance. We may procrastinate, overthink, or create chaos just before breakthrough. These are symptoms of what has not yet been made conscious. Avoidance has a cost. We lose time, energy, and opportunity. We remain stuck in familiar pain instead of risking the unknown. The patterns continue until they become unbearable, or until we gather the courage to face their source. Repeating patterns are not punishment. They are mirrors. They reflect what within us still needs love, still needs truth. Inner work breaks the cycle not by fixing the outside world, but by transforming our relationship with ourselves. When we avoid our inner world, we struggle to connect deeply with others. Relationships become performances, where we hide behind roles, smiles, and surface conversations. Intimacy requires honesty, but honesty demands self-awareness. We cannot share what we have not touched. If we are numb to our own emotions, we cannot hold space for the emotions of others. Love becomes conditional, limited by what we are comfortable feeling within ourselves. Emotional numbness is often mistaken for strength. We believe we are in control because nothing affects us. In truth, we are disconnected. The walls we build to protect ourselves also keep out joy, wonder, and genuine connection. Shallow relationships may feel safe, but they leave us lonely. We long for someone to see us, yet we do not show who we are. We crave depth, but remain in patterns that reward detachment and fear vulnerability. When we avoid pain, we also avoid aliveness. The full spectrum of emotion is what makes life meaningful. Without it, even happy moments feel dull. We go through the motions but miss the essence of experience. Inner work restores emotional sensitivity. It brings us back to the raw human experience we once avoided. This sensitivity is not weakness. It is the beginning of real connection, both with ourselves and those we love. When we live disconnected from our inner life, a quiet emptiness often follows. Even when things appear fine on the outside, something feels missing. This emptiness is not a flaw. It is the soul's call to be seen and heard. We may chase success, beauty, or approval, hoping they will fill the void. But the more we achieve without alignment, the deeper the hollowness becomes. Meaning cannot be borrowed from others. It must arise from inner truth. Emptiness is not cured by consumption. More noise, more goals, more distractions only mask the silence temporarily. Eventually, the feeling returns stronger than before. It asks us to stop running and turn inward. Many experience this as burnout, disillusionment, or spiritual fatigue. What once felt important loses its flavor. We may feel detached from purpose, not because life is empty, but because we have not yet fully inhabited ourselves. The absence of inner work leaves a person split. Part of us performs for the world, while another part quietly fades. Without integration, we become strangers to our own life. Joy feels distant. Time passes without presence. Meaning is not found. It is revealed through presence. When we reconnect with our inner world, even small moments regain depth. What once felt empty becomes sacred. This shift begins only when we stop avoiding what lives within us. Transformation begins the moment we stop lying to ourselves. Radical honesty is not about judgment. It is about finally seeing what is there without distortion, excuse, or defense. This is where inner work truly begins. To be radically honest is to admit when we are hurt, afraid, resentful, or lost. It is to drop the mask we wear, even in solitude. The stories we have told ourselves for years begin to unravel in the light of truth. We often fear honesty because we believe it will break us. But what breaks us is the effort to maintain illusions. Honesty is not destruction. It is liberation. What is false must fall away for what is real to emerge. This kind of truth cannot be rushed. It requires stillness and courage. It may come through quiet reflection or in moments of emotional intensity. The key is to remain present and willing to feel what is often avoided. Honesty is the threshold to freedom. Without it, any healing remains superficial. With it, even long-buried pain becomes a doorway to growth. It is the act of saying, "This is where I am, and I am ready to begin." Radical honesty does not seek perfection. It seeks reality. It allows us to meet ourselves as we are, not as we pretend to be. From that ground, change becomes possible. From that truth, new life can begin. Inner work is rarely chosen in comfort. It often begins in a moment of quiet despair, when our usual ways of coping no longer work. Something inside us breaks, not in weakness, but in readiness for something more honest. We stop resisting, not because the path becomes easier, but because the cost of avoidance becomes too high. The masks feel heavier, the patterns more painful. The life we have built no longer reflects who we truly are. There comes a point when growth matters more than safety. When truth becomes more valuable than approval. When feeling deeply, even if it hurts, feels better than staying numb. That is the threshold of transformation. Readiness is not about having answers. It is about having the willingness to sit with questions. To face discomfort without fleeing. To stop pretending we are fine when something inside us longs to be seen. This moment is not dramatic. It is quiet, often invisible to others. A shift happens within. We stop asking how to escape and start asking what we need to feel. From there, resistance begins to lose its power. When we are ready, the fear remains but no longer controls us. We begin to walk inward not because we are fearless, but because we sense that something real is waiting. Something that only reveals itself to those who are willing to look. Pain is not the enemy. It is a messenger. It arrives when something within us needs attention, healing, or change. When we stop running from it, pain becomes a doorway to deeper understanding and greater wholeness. We are taught to silence pain, to fix it, to numb it as quickly as possible. But in doing so, we miss its wisdom. Every wound carries a story. Every ache points to a part of ourselves we have forgotten or abandoned. Pain reveals what truly matters. It shows us our unmet needs, our unspoken truths, and the parts of us that have been ignored for too long. When we listen, it no longer seeks to punish. It seeks to guide. Facing pain does not mean becoming consumed by it. It means meeting it with presence, feeling it fully without turning away. In that presence, pain softens. It transforms from something we fear to something we learn from. Some of our greatest clarity comes after our deepest heartbreak. Some of our strongest boundaries arise from old betrayals. Pain, when held with awareness, does not break us. It reshapes us into someone more honest and alive. When we stop running, we reclaim power. The energy used to avoid our suffering becomes the energy we use to grow. Pain ceases to be a prison. It becomes a path toward a more meaningful and truthful life. The more we turn inward, the clearer life becomes. We no longer react blindly to emotions or chase meaning outside ourselves. We begin to understand why we feel what we feel and respond with awareness instead of habit. Inner clarity is not about having all the answers. It is about seeing with honesty. We stop distorting reality to fit our fears. We begin to trust our perceptions, make choices aligned with our values, and recognize what truly nourishes us. With clarity comes resilience. We no longer break when things fall apart. We bend, we adapt. We face uncertainty without collapsing because we are rooted in something deeper than circumstance. We know who we are becoming. Resilience is not cold endurance. It is the strength to stay open even when life is difficult. It is the ability to feel pain without losing connection to joy. It is built slowly. Through each moment, we choose presence over escape. This kind of strength cannot be taught from the outside. It grows from within, through honest reflection and compassionate self-awareness. It comes from being intimate with our own suffering and still choosing to rise. Inner work does not make life easier. It makes us wiser, steadier, and more capable of meeting life as it is. We stop fearing hardship because we know we carry the tools to face it with clarity and inner stability. As we reconnect with our inner world, we naturally connect more deeply with others. We listen with presence rather than waiting to speak. We see beyond surface behavior and begin to recognize the humanity in those around us. When we are no longer hiding from ourselves, we stop demanding that others hide too. We make space for authenticity. Conversations become more than words. They carry depth, honesty, and the courage to be vulnerable. Life itself begins to feel more alive. We notice beauty in ordinary things. A sunrise moves us. Silence feels sacred. Small moments become meaningful because we are no longer distracted by internal noise or pretending. We become more available. Not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. Our presence becomes a gift to others, not because we try to impress them, but because we are rooted in truth and no longer afraid to be seen. Connection flows from inner alignment. When we are at war with ourselves, we project that conflict outward. But when we feel whole, we create relationships that reflect peace, respect, and real understanding. This depth is not found through performance or effort. It arises naturally as the inner barriers dissolve. What was once guarded becomes open. What was once numb becomes tender. This is the power of inner work lived in relationship. Throughout life, we abandon parts of ourselves to survive. We silence certain emotions, deny desires, and hide traits that were once judged or rejected. Over time, we forget they were ever ours to begin with. Inner work is the process of remembering. It is not about becoming someone new. It is about recovering the parts we left behind. Each fear we face, each truth we embrace, brings a piece of us back into wholeness. Some parts return as strength we once disowned. Others as creativity long buried beneath doubt. We rediscover playfulness, sensuality, intuition, and vulnerability. These qualities were never lost. They were simply waiting for permission to return. This reclamation is subtle but powerful. We begin to feel more ourselves than we have in years. We stop performing and start living. The life we once felt disconnected from begins to feel like it truly belongs to us. As we gather what was once exiled, we develop a deeper compassion for ourselves. We stop seeing brokenness and start seeing complexity. What once felt like shame transforms into understanding and even beauty. To reclaim ourselves is to become whole. Not perfect, but integrated. It is the quiet joy of knowing we no longer need to hide. We carry our past not as a burden, but as a story we have learned to hold with love. Feeling lost is not always a mistake. Sometimes it is the sign that the old self no longer fits. We search for clarity outside, but what we truly need is the willingness to turn inward and meet the part of ourselves we have long avoided. The answers we seek do not always come from more light or more positivity. They come from facing what we fear. The shadow holds not only our pain but also our power. What we avoid may be the very thing that sets us free. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is choosing to look anyway, to sit with discomfort and say yes to the unknown. To let go of who we thought we were and allow something deeper to emerge. This is the beginning of awakening. When we stop searching for the light and begin honoring the dark, we find something real. Not fantasy, not escape, but truth. The kind that humbles us, changes us, and reconnects us to life with greater depth. Carl Jung never pointed us toward perfection. He saw that the soul does not seek to become flawless. It seeks to become whole. Wholeness includes the light and the dark, the joy and the sorrow, the clarity and the confusion. Perfection is an illusion that divides us from ourselves. It makes us hide what is raw and imperfect. Wholeness invites us to integrate it, to bring forward every part of who we are and hold it with acceptance instead of shame. True healing does not come from fixing what is broken. It comes from including what was once excluded. Jung believed that the shadow contains essential parts of the self. To ignore it is to live a life only half lived. Wholeness allows contradiction. It makes space for the wounded child and the wise adult to coexist. It knows that peace does not mean the absence of struggle. It means we are no longer in conflict with our own nature. When we embrace this view, life becomes richer. We stop striving to be someone else and start becoming who we already are beneath the defenses. This is the quiet strength that comes from inner reconciliation. Jung did not give us rules to follow. He gave us a mirror. He invited us to look within and reclaim the truth that no external path can offer. Not perfection, but a life lived from the fullness of our being. What am I hiding from myself? This question is not meant to shame but to open. It invites us to listen gently to the quiet corners of our being, the places we have turned away from out of fear, pain, or misunderstanding. What truth in me have I been afraid to see? Not the truth others expect, but the truth that keeps whispering through dreams, through discomfort, through longing. The truth that does not go away because it is part of who we are. These questions are not answered in a single moment. They unfold over time. They ask for presence, for stillness, for sincerity. They do not demand that we fix ourselves, only that we become willing to see with honest eyes. Each reflection is a doorway. Each moment of awareness is a step toward integration. The more we look without judgment, the more we begin to remember who we were before we learned to forget ourselves. This is the invitation of inner work. Not to become better, but to become whole. Not to rise above life, but to sink into it fully. Not to avoid the shadow, but to make peace with it and find the light waiting behind it. The work begins with one question and the willingness to stay. Not to run, not to escape, but to stay, and in that staying, to slowly become someone real, someone free, someone whole.